Hello and welcome. You're watching the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kamal. India's big moonshot now only 1 day away. Some uncertainty though about whether the Chandrayaan 3 will indeed land on the south pole of the moon around 6 p.m. tomorrow, or could this get delayed till Sunday? We'll get you all the factors at play as we count down to the big landing of Chandrayaan 3.
Less than 24 hours for Moon Milan. One small step for Vikram. One giant leap for India. Team Chandrayaan 3 is calm and confident. Cheer for Chandrayaan with Newstrack.
The journey of Chandrayaan 3 has India gripped. Rarely has any feat in science and technology aroused the kind of public interest as this lunar mission has. Let's get started. Here are the headlines I'm tracking today. Less than 24 hours to go for Chandrayaan 3's moon touchdown. Isro ready with plan B in case conditions are unfavorable. Prime Minister to watch the landing live virtually from South Africa. Delhi rapist Babu and wife's attempt to evade arrest foiled. CCTV video shows the bureaucrat at church days after FIR was filed against him. Delhi Women Panel Chief seeks a meeting with Home Minister Amit Shah over this case. Prime Minister Modi receives a big welcome as he lands for the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. Suspense over bilateral with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Superstar Rajnikant defends his gesture of bowing to touch UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath's feet, says it's a habit. Congress mocks the Rajni-Yogi meet, calls it a courtesy call to the next PM. Indian teen chess prodigy Pragananda and Magnus Carlsen settled for a draw in Game 1 of the World Chess Championships final. India is at the edge of its seat as the final countdown begins to the landing of Chandrayaan 3. The Vikram lander now just 25 kilometers away from the surface of the moon. At 6:04 p.m. tomorrow, it will attempt to land on the lunar surface. Isro says so far the mission fully on track, all systems are working properly, but just in case conditions tomorrow are not ideal, Isro says they have a plan B ready.
India's moon mission is hours away from a historic climax. Chandrayaan's Vikram lander is approaching the moon rendezvous. Saying hello to Chandrama, snapping breathtaking images from close vicinity, showing moon in all its glory, with details of the unexplored far side, complete with billion-year-old craters. Indian Space Agency asserted that the mission is fully on track. The system is undergoing regular checks to ensure a smooth touchdown.
It is almost similar to what we designed or developed for Chandrayaan 2, except for instead of orbiter now, because orbiter is anyway working fine, and it is still useful and it is giving a lot of important data which will be utilized for Chandrayaan 3 landing also. So we decided that orbiter will be replaced by a propulsion module. Which duty is to take it to the orbit of moon surface.
Isro is not taking any chances, especially after crash of the Russian moon mission. Keeping another landing site ready for Sunday touchdown if parameters aren't ideal on Wednesday. Former Isro chief K. Sivan broke down the final maneuvers moments before the planned touchdown.
First of all, lunar mission failure and this one, they are not related. Luna actually that is have its own system, its own the sensor, thrusters, and it may have its own characteristics. But we have our own system, our own thruster, our own sensors, which it has been functioning very nicely and without any problem. And till now we are achieved what we want in a perfect way. And I'm sure that this will repeat on 23rd also. So we'll get a good landing, and we are not getting disturbed by the Luna 25 failure. They are not related. They are not a similar system. They are different system.
Okay.
So we are confident that we'll be able to achieve without any problem.
A billion cheers, prayers and wishes are meanwhile pouring in as India roots for Chandrayaan 3.
एक बहुत बड़ा इतिहास भारत के सभी विशेषज्ञों ने, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने रचा है और प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में भारत नई ऊंचाइयां तो छू ही रहा था। भारत का तिरंगा केवल देश के अंदर नहीं लेकिन विश्व पटल पर अब हमारी यही कोशिश है कि वो तिरंगा चांद पे भी गाड़ के रखा जाए।
Special pujas are being held in temples and namaz is being offered in mosques, all for Chandrayaan's success. The lander is expected to touch down on Moon's south polar region at 6:04 p.m. on Wednesday. We wish India a grand success in conquering the moon. With Akshita Nandagopal in Bengaluru and Milan Sharma in Ahmedabad, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me on this special broadcast are two of the legends of Indian space research. I am joined by Y.S. Rajan, Distinguished Professor, Isro, former scientist, Padma Shri awardee, close aide of the former President, Dr. Kalam. Mailaswamy Annadurai joins us, former director of the Isro Satellite Center, popularly known as the Moon Man of India, was involved in Chandrayaan 1. With me in the studio is editorial director publishing at India Today, Raj Chingappa. There's nobody I know who tracks science and technology in the journalistic community quite as closely as Raj does, and has the breadth of experience in India's moon journey and space journey as Mr. Chingappa. So I want to go across first and foremost to Y.S. Rajan. Sir, if you could begin by explaining to our viewers the circumstances under which ISRO's space team will decide tomorrow whether or not to go ahead with the landing. We're told that a plan B is ready and that there is a possibility that the landing of the Chandrayaan 3 could get pushed to Sunday the 27th. So what are the kind of conditions that ISRO scientists will be looking out for which will help them determine whether to go for that attempt at a soft landing or to delay it till Sunday?
See, this is a question on which I won't be able to answer anything substantively truthfully, because as of now we are going by the same thing what is going on the scheduled time. 5:47 goes into the autonomous landing system, and then 6:02 or 6:03. Maybe since you have got another, maybe you may be able to say something, but I wouldn't like to venture into saying something.
I respect that.
By,
So,
by all means,
yes,
it appears that it'll land on very correctly on time.
Okay, you're saying you think chances of a landing being attempted as per schedule are higher. Mailaswamy Annadurai, as the Moon Man of India, could you explain, sir, the circumstances which will be involved in determining whether to go ahead with that landing to try and do what no country has pulled off so far, or to push it till Sunday?
Yeah, if you look at that, every launch, even the rocket launch, has its own the countdowns for the targeted launch date, and depends on 36 hours before, 48 hours before. You would have seen that PSLV, GSLV launches, and that means every second ticks. We have the host of the parameters to be verified, host of the activities to be verified, not only on the hardware which is sitting on the launch pad, as well as the ground systems sitting in Sriharikota, as well as the down-range ground systems, communication channels, radar systems. I think the host of the things needs to be verified, including communication links. I think a host of the things needs to be verified. And each one has been identified responsible people, they will do it. And they will report back to the launch authorization board, and launch authorization board tells, yes, you can go for the targeted rate, whether all systems are ready. I think the process is going on. And that I think we have to wait and see what finally, because this countdown, it also gives a room for the possibly, if something is abnormal you are seeing, possible room to correct also. I think we have to keep in mind that also. Keeping in mind, I think we have to keep the fingers crossed until the tomorrow, like launch authorization board, the mission management council will look at all the responsible people, whomever they have done, and their reports, and accordingly will go. And you would have seen even the launch time before go is given by the mission director. Each one of the stations giving green, 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 green. Then only looking all the things put together only the so-called launch takes place. And it's no difference when you are going for the soft landing is concerned. All the systems on the lander, the software, the hardware systems, and the ground systems, and the ground communication from the lander all the way to the Earth, both directly to the Earth and as well as through Chandrayaan-2. I think host of the thing, and two-way communication, and what all programs we uploaded here, whether it has normally be downloaded and read thoroughly, whether not even a single bit has an issue. Okay. Then only will go. So
Rajchingappa, what would be going through the minds of our scientists? Because an India-Pakistan cricket match during a World Cup is pressure. This, I just get the feeling, is infinitely more pressure than an India-Pak cricket game. And these are men of science, and there are these namazes and these pujas, havans happening all over the country. How does it play on their psyche? Does it at all?
No, I was speaking to Dr. Somnath, the chairman of Isro, yesterday. I think he's experienced, like all space scientists have experienced, both failure and success. And in fact, Dr. Kalam, whom Dr. Y.S. Rajan knows so well, and I'm so happy to see Dr. Rajan on this, used to say, failure is the stepping stone of success. So Isro has learned over a period of time of that. So they have, put aside the setback, not put aside, but actually studied the setback that happened in Chandrayaan-2. And then what he says is, let's look at what really failed at Chandrayaan-2, right? There was a propulsion failure. There was too much speed going on at a particular point of the descent. Then there was a guidance failure and a control failure that landed in the crash. So in each of these three sectors, from what he told me, was that he has built, if earlier it was success-oriented, that, everything will work and therefore you build parameters only for that success, this time it's failure-oriented. So they've calculated at every stage, whether it's the propulsion and the thrusters and how much is it giving and what is this thing. They've built a redundancy in that. In the guidance system, they've built redundancies and control and landing.
But apart from algo testing, this has never really been tested in the real world. This is something which is being attempted, which has never been done by any country ever to land on the south pole of the moon.
Well, the people have landed, and also, on the South Pole is a little more difficult because there's plenty of craters, there are problems of shadows, you have to get your solar panels right because, if you're landing at the equator, which is the easiest of the lot, where most people have done that, you don't have the kind of complications that are there. But at the South Pole, why are we doing it? Because there's a lot of water ice over there, and all future missions would, if we have to colonize the moon, we have to find water, not only to, live there, as well as for, say, generating hydrogen for, spacecraft that we can take to Mars and others. So us going to South Pole is a calculated strategic move. It's tough, it's risky, because there are a lot of boulders, there are a lot of craters, but that's the challenge. And I think this time what they have done is, last time there was a small window, in the sense a small area, which is around 500 square, like a football field that they decided to land. But this time they've expanded it to even larger, 4 square kilometers, which gives you, a lot more sort of leeway. Last time they were rushing through to land at that precise point. The second thing I think is, as different from Chandrayaan-2, is they're carrying more fuel.
Okay.
And that's very important. Because what happens is, if you have a deviation, you have enough fuel to burn to correct it and get it there.
Can you explain, Dr. Rajan, to our viewers, how do you ensure that the Vikram rover, once it lands, is controlled in a way that it doesn't get stuck in any of these boulders or the sandy formations on the surface of the moon? and the fear that even if there is a successful landing, the need to control the lunar probe to be able to execute all the scientific experiments is successful.
Okay, thank you. See, main thing is, let us remember one thing. All what could be done is before 5.47 p.m. tomorrow. Once that 5.47 is done, it goes to the automatic landing system.
Okay.
Then they are also in the same boat like us, because then the Vikram and Pragyan of course are inside, so they are of their own. Okay, but to answer your question, what happens? The crater, this one, that one, etc. A lot of data has come from Chandrayaan 2 itself. In fact, Chairman Isro, in the beginning part of it, he explained several things. In that, he said that even for the landing for Chandrayaan 2, they had to restrict it to certain area, because that's all what they knew. Now, because of the Chandrayaan 2, they have got a much more, so it has got more areas in which it can be landing. Then it has got automatic velocity seeing, all for the landing, and then altimeter, etc. So once it lands, soft lands, we all pray that it takes place well. Then it is lander of its own, everything. That fellow this will come out, and then they have programmed it on all possible modes which can take place. This failure, if it takes place, what it will do. If it encounters this, what it will do. If it is a slope, what it will do. Or if something else. Almost for most of these things, those programs have been loaded into the computer system there. And there are so many sensors there. Underneath camera, there's etc. etc. With all of that, they will guide by themselves and go. It is for these 14 days. That's what it is.
You know, what
The
makes
key
this
is,
even more
key is to
fascinating,
land software successfully.
you know, and which is why I think it will be one of the biggest visual moments of the year and arguably of all time, is because there'll be live footage coming in. Now just imagine, this is as the Chandrayaan, and explain, Dr. Rajan, the technology involved in that, as the Chandrayaan 3 lands. It's not as if you're seeing an empty screen, because initially when a rocket would take off, you'd see the initial few seconds and then the rocket would be gone. Here you've got cameras on the Chandrayaan 3 that track the Chandrayaan 3 as it lands. That's quite incredible. How is that happening, sir?
That is happening because they have put a camera there, and then you need communication. Chandrayaan 3 itself, the fellows who took it, the orbiter, it has got a link. And then in addition, Chandrayaan 2 was working well, so that lander has made a link to that also. So it has got two links. From the lander, even after the thing, when the rover also comes down, it will give to the lander, to the Vikram. Then there are two communication channels which communicate with the Earth. The Isro's deep space network or something, they say. So now everything can be seen. Even in fact, one of the Isro mission, they did it one camera in the bottom also, they kept one of the launch vehicle. In future, you will see such small TV cameras will be available. So it will be a great thing for you people. Always images will come. So this one is, you're seeing it. Now you will see, even when all those things, soft landing, etc. are taking place, you will see those. What I said was, you can't do any control on it. ALS takes over, it will come and soft land. Then about 2 hours or so, I think they have programmed it. Maybe even there they might have given some, this one where the dust and everything has settled. Then the one panel comes out. Then like as we come in the aircraft, sometimes emergency landing, they put one slide, it comes. So this will come. In that, like as somebody explained it very beautifully, kangaroo's child, like that, it will leave it in. So then that is Pragyan. It is named Pragyan. Little tough to make it. So that fellow will start moving around, and when it moves around, it will always be in touch with the mother, Vikram. And all the data it collects, the two payloads also it will give there. So whatever it does, whatever it goes, Vikram also will be seeing it.
Amazing. I wish I had you Dr. Rajan, as my science teacher in school and college, it would have been great to learn in the way that you're describing it, this little fellow, that little fellow. It just makes it so much more relatable. And this advancement in technology, Raj, would be so different from the time you started covering India's space mission or the moon journey, where all you had were these images where you could see dots, but not the kind of live broadcast images we're seeing right now.
Well, I think what ISRO has done is really built on the competence. It was very hard focused on development, technology, which was building launchers and then satellites that we could utilize. So whether it was telecommunication or remote sensing or even navigation and military satellites, we built a competence. Now we are going into the next big step that is there, which is exploration. We started that with Chandrayaan, we had Mangalyaan, and now we are bringing back, I think, the lunar mission because the world is now interested. If you've seen till about 70s and 60s, you had over 100 missions, then suddenly everything petered off, and only in 2000...
Why did the world lose interest in going to the moon?
Essentially, a couple of things. One is because all these missions, they got back a lot of lunar material, and they were able to study it and find out what was there. And then they wanted to go beyond and do other things that were there, whether it was the space station and endurance in terms of Mars. Moon has come back for two reasons. One, particularly US, which has started the Artemis project, which by 2025 will have, again, humans on the moon. And the idea is to use moon, to colonize moon in some senses, and use it as a staging ground for exploration of Mars and other things.
Why is it easier to, let me ask Dr. Rajan this question, why is it easier to explore Mars and other places in our galaxy from the moon than it is from the Earth?
See, it is so simple. It is nearer.
No, but you're also so far away, so your ability to move things, get things there, restricted by the fact that you're already so far from the Earth.
No, we don't have to do it. It will be done there.
Yeah.
See, now you see the other newer technologies. Here we are doing it by traditional manufacturing. There will be 3D things there, 3D doing, and probably new propulsion systems. When they all come, from there it is much easier. And then Earth's gravity pulls you down. Atmosphere breaks it. That is why this one you have got a Bahubali bottom. When up to 15 kilometers, really it has to struggle through. There it is vacuum. But don't think that it will be happening in the next 5 years or so. 15, 20 years. By that time, all those assembly will be done. That is the reason they are going for the South Pole. There has to be a human habitat. Can't go automatic. Everything cannot be automatic. There will be technicians and others who will live, who will do the thing. Then the water will be recycled. Then there will be probably they may start with algae and some plants because you have to eat also. All the food cannot be transported. Already it is heavy. So all those things will be there. There will be some small habitat which will come. And probably countries are going to cooperate. You mentioned about Artemis. So there is possibly people will cooperate. Some will do this, some will do that, etc. So that's all. So
but why have 3 missions failed so far? The Israeli Bereshit, Japan's Hakuto R, Russia's Luna 25, all 3 attempting a similar landing on the south pole of the moon, all failed. Why?
See, each one of them had different reasons. Japanese, some other, Israelis, some other, but they were all coming very close, like our Chandrayaan 2, very close to the soft landing. Russians, of course, are very great, but their failure was even before what the current orbit is. Please remember, now it is 25 kilometers by 135 or something like that. Earlier, you were talking about 100. The Russians also were in the higher one, and then they were going a break and then coming to this. At that point, they got into trouble. So that is a different type of problem. That landing has always been, soft landing has been a problem. Because atmosphere is not there. So it has to do purely of its own weight and the thrusters. But people have understood much more. See, just as 2, 3, if you see the earlier space, today I was just doing in the Zoom. I knew it before. No, not Zoom, I'm doing in the Google. Earlier failures, if you see from NASA and the USSR, so many. in fact, when we start doing, our relatively failures are low because the corpus of knowledge which is available in the worldwide, there is some amount of sharing. Nobody can keep everything under. People read, people learn. Many of our fellows will know a lot of things. So we learn. It is a continuous process of learning and doing it. And to me, it appears from all what is there and what all Somnath, the chairman, has explained, the amount of precautions and everything they have taken, not only to fix the earlier problems, but also introduce so many other things. About 80% changes have been done into it. So with all that, I see a very, very, very high probability that it will land well.
Okay, we've got our fingers crossed. This has been a masterclass in science. Dr. Rajan, I appreciate you taking our time, and I hope to see you tomorrow after a successful landing. I want to welcome now Dr. Amitabh Ghosh, a space scientist, formerly with the Mars Exploration Rover mission of NASA. We've got Dr. P.K. Ghosh, space strategist and researcher. Dr. Ghosh, the biggest question at this moment is whether ISRO will push for the landing tomorrow, or will they activate plan B, which is to push the landing till Sunday. Could you explain as best as you can the factors that will be at play in the way that you would have done it at the Mars Exploration Rover for NASA? What would be kept in mind, whether determining whether to go for that landing or to delay it and hedge till Sunday?
Well, you have to see what the trajectory is at that point. And based on that, you decide whether it's that optimal time to launch or not, right? So anyone who's predicting either way, not landing, landing, probably does not know. It will depend on what they assess 2 hours from now. So all predictions of I think even ISRO is trying to keep the options open. That's why they have come up with that other thing. So there are many parameters they will look at, and if something appears off, then of course they will try a different time. So, and I was listening to the previous discussion about there is a lot of speculation. One is the moon is not going to be the landing stage to reach out to the other planets. There is no advantage. The only advantage is to do technology demonstrations so that you can test these technologies before you head out further. So that's what it is.
Okay. How do you think the program has gone so far? From what we are hearing from ISRO is that so far things have been as per schedule in the way that they would have estimated. Is this a project that, say, NASA, the Chinese, the Russians, they've all got their eyes out, or it's not such a big deal for them?
Well, it is. It's a curiosity. I wouldn't say that. See, there are many missions going on. As you mentioned, there were Japanese missions and Israeli missions, and so there are a lot of activity going on. So I wouldn't say everyone is rooting for this success. That's for sure. If you look at how NASA missions have gone so up to this stage. So I was actually not just part of the Mars Exploration Rover. It's also Curiosity, Mars Pathfinder, Mars Phoenix. All these missions. At this stage, everything looks good. It's the last stage, the landing stage, which is most difficult. So just because up to this stage everything is fine doesn't mean
why is the landing the most difficult state, sir?
See, because the parameter space of the engineering parameter space is very large. So you have to have the right amount of deceleration, the right amount of atmospheric resistance. So all your parameters should match, and you're guessing because you don't know. All these spacecrafts have not been tested under lunar conditions. They've been tested under Earth conditions. So say Mars, when you're going through the atmosphere, you don't know the atmospheric stratification, the density, the pressure, the temperature. You're discovering it kind of the first time. And so you have to adapt immediately. Your algorithm should be good enough. And then there are slight things which can happen, like what if it did not land on the 4 legs? What's your remedy? What if the legs broke? What if there was a rock there and it kind of so there are many possibilities.
So what happens in those cases? Let's take it one by one. What if it doesn't land on all 4 feet, lands only on 2? What if one of the legs breaks? What happens in these cases?
Well, I think you have to ask somebody from ISRO, but I can tell you from NASA missions, there is, for example, if the rover overturns, right? This was a possibility for Mars Pathfinder. It was a very small rover like this. There is really no recourse. We had a ramp. So the lander had a ramp, and the rover gently came down that ramp on the surface. What if it did not come down gently and it toppled? Well, that's the end of the mission. It cannot drive again, right?
Oh, good Lord.
And then the ramp. If you remember the ramp, so the ISRO will also have a ramp. The ramp from Pathfinder in '97 got stuck in airbags, so we could not unroll the ramp, right? So if you cannot unroll the ramp, you cannot get the rover off the lander. So again, that's again a mission.
So what did you do then?
Failure.
If it got stuck in airbags, what did you do?
So we played that situation out on the ground here in our test lab, and we tried many combinations, and then we somehow found a strategy how to entangle it. So it was very tense. This is what you will not see, but there are a lot of things which go down.
You're just making it sound much more scary than one would have imagined. Dr. Ghosh, let me just build with what I was asking Amitabh Ghosh, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, about some of these circumstances. What if it doesn't land on all 4 feet? What if it lands on only 2? Or what if it overturns? I mean, as someone who didn't study science in any serious way, those things sound very scary to me. What happens in some of these circumstances, sir?
What I have heard is that even if one of the legs slightly breaks or there is a problem in it, but still they have strengthened the leg so much. In fact, they have strengthened the leg to almost one, it can take the thrust of 1 meter per second more than it was earlier. And I think that is what they are hoping, that these legs, as you are showing now, will be able to absorb whatever is the thrust which comes, whatever is the speed at which it comes. Of course, they have laid down the parameter for the speed. They say that even if it comes at a speed of, let's say, 1 to 2 meters per second, it can withstand the pressure. That is, I'm talking of the vertical speed. If there is a sway of, let's say, 0.05 meters, still it can withstand. So I think all this has been inbuilt into the lander, and I really see no reason as to why. Of course, as Amitabh mentioned, that if the slide doesn't open, or if there is some unusual event which happens, that is possible in anything, anywhere. So of course, one features in certain contingencies, but it's absolutely impossible to feature out all contingencies.
Chingappa, it just shows how the slightest error at any moment can upend all these plans. I mean, you could have engineered a soft, successful landing, and then, like Dr. Amitabh Ghosh was saying, it gets stuck in the parachutes and the rover doesn't come down, and voila, you're stuck.
Yes, space is unforgiving. You could be 99.9% there, but that 0.1% can make the difference and destroy it. But I think what ISRO is targeting are 3 things, essentially, in Chandrayaan 3. 1, to land on the moon, right? That by itself is an achievement. 2 is to get a rover out, as Amitabh was saying, and what it can do. And 3 is, of course, doing the scientific experiments, both from the lander and it. Now, even if we do land, and as my friend was talking about the difficulty of it, what they have done is, this is, it's very interesting, even the legs, the way the lander is, it's got this honeycomb arrangement with aluminium. So it's like a shock absorber. So when it slams down, what he's mentioned is that what ISRO has done is redundant systems that's there. So they have built this much stronger than the earlier Chandrayaan-2 lander that was to be there. 2, as the way Dr. Somnath describes it, they've made it very rugged. So all these various anomalies that could arise, they've calculated them. Of course, it's very difficult. At the end of the day, anything could turn it around. There could be a malfunctioning valve here or there, and you could run into major issues. But what they've done is, in each of these stages, these critical things, whether it's the propulsion, making sure the thrusters, you have enough fuel, you have enough, if one fails, the other can take over. Even the direction thing, the same thing with control and guidance. Last time there was a software error. The software could not, because of the excess speed that came in, it could not calculate and it started tumbling out of control. So that they've built in and worked the algorithms and said, okay, if it is traveling at this speed, we have this much leeway. So they've given almost twice the leeway that they had last time. And finally, when the landing and the procedure of landing, there again, they've made sure that, okay, if we have not got, they've got enough fuel. So if we're not getting the right space, last time what happened was, as it started moving, it suddenly realized that it was at a great distance. The speed was wrong. So instead of decelerating, which is what you're trying to kill the acceleration that's there, it actually accelerated. And when, the crash was almost immediate, maybe 500 meters away from the actual landing site. So this time what they worked out is, okay, if we're not getting it, it's got enough sensors, enough inertial guidance systems and everything else to say it's not happening, enough fuel to go and land. So I think what Isro has done, and I think that's the reason why when you speak to these scientists, is that they've worked out most of the contingencies. Of course, there's always the unknown that could happen, as Dr. Sivan had told you, in his interview, and that is something that no one can plan for.
Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, Director General of the Indian Space Association, what could this lunar probe mean for India's space ambitions? There's so many space tech firms that are now trying to do interesting things for India's space program, part of global space programs. What could this potentially mean for India's quest in space?
Oh, definitely it will give a fillip and more opportunities, because, the next big thing in space is the lunar economy. And lunar economy means everything related to, as in the future, maybe a decade or more, when we make space stations, we make a colony, we do mining there. For all that, there would be a lunar economy where private players would be involved. And in India, as you know, after June 2020, the government has opened space to private players. We are, of course, in the nascent stage there. We've just had our suborbital launch. We have some of our startups who have made satellites which are there in space. But in the future, we would be seeing private players as partners of this lunar economy, which would be global and which would involve all activities, a lot of robos, maybe for mining, maybe construction activity, and many more. But that is where the future is.
Dr. Amitabh Ghosh, if you mine on the surface of the moon, what could you potentially get which is useful for the Earth? And this whole idea of colonizing the moon, which is being spoken of so nonchalantly, how much is this a matter of space and science fiction, and how much of it could be reality?
I think 50% is science fiction. I'll tell you what is possible and what is not possible. Okay, what is possible is, like, say, if you go to Antarctica now, I think a lot of nations maintain a whole year access to it. So people live in a habitation module. They are having pizza, they have a refrigerator, they're watching cable TV. It's just like on Earth. You can have something on the moon like that. In addition to everything that you have on Earth, they'll have oxygen. That's what Jeff Bezos is trying through his company Blue Origins. Now that is rational and doable. That is what NASA could also do. That's what the space station is. It's 250 miles above the Earth. People live there 365 days. Astronauts, they come and do experiments. That is possible. Lunar economy is something, it's even a step further. So things like Disney World, say it is possible. Elon Musk is developing something called Starship. Starship would reduce the cost of moon travel by maybe 1,000. So if you could buy and take a ticket to the moon for 1 crore, would you visit it once in your lifetime? Well, if you got 1 million customers like you, then there will be a tourism industry.
Would you, Amitabh Ghosh, trust Elon Musk to take you to the moon if you had 1 crore you wanted to spend on this?
See, I'm not into, I have a lot of astronaut friends, but it's actually not as exciting as it sounds. It's quite a dangerous thing. So you go to work and you might not come back. So I prefer being a scientist on the ground. But yeah, coming back to it, it is possible. If you thought of Disney World, you see Disney World today, when Walt Disney made his first pitch as a venture capital thing, that I'm going to build this resort in the middle of nowhere. where people would come to see a mouse. Well, it would have sounded ridiculous, but it is happening today. So people do go there once in their lifetime in the US, right? So it's possible, but it is not a near-term natural progression. It is still science fiction.
How many years out is this? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Is there a way of knowing? Elon Musk has a lot of ambition, a lot of money.
Well, the money, he has to get market participation. He has to get the mass market. His money would not really be sufficient. It will depend. See, he's testing Starship. I think he has had, 16 failures, but he's still on the way to go. Starship is a critical component of the US return on 26. If his Starship is successful and it reduces the cost by 1,000% like it does, then the space frontier would suddenly be wide open.
Raj, you willing to shell out 1 crore rupees, sit on a Elon Musk Starship somewhere to the moon?
If I had a crore, sure I would. But I'd just like to add to what Amitabh said and actually differ in some ways. Because I think, we are looking at a climate change crisis that is there. This is only one plan. We only have plan A, right? What is your plan B? Plan B obviously is to find other planets, other places that are hospitable, and see if we can do things over there. And otherwise, the human race
perishes. But we haven't really found something so far.
Yeah, but the starting point, the lunar gateway as it's called, though he may say that, look, colonizing the moon may not be the kind of thing that is there, it does give us a lot of opportunity, because what someone else was mentioning, I think Dr. Rajan was mentioning earlier, is that you need giant boosters to take anything up beyond Earth because of the kind of atmosphere that is there and the amount of thing that you have to break gravity break free from gravity. At the moon, you don't have that problem. The moon has 1/6 of Earth's gravity. So if you start building things over there, and say you want to go to Mars, right? So it breaks the journey. Otherwise, going to Mars takes a long time. And then acclimatizing, because Mars has its own issues. So what it does, I think, is the reason why we're doing a lot of this, apart from just the fun of it or the being at the cutting edge, is that there is tremendous amount of purpose in it. Apart from technologies that you and I can actually benefit from. Let's not forget artificial intelligence, better materials. All that has benefited humankind tremendously because you're miniaturizing everything in space. Now comes the big thing. What if we can explore and look at other things? Moon, of course, has, you never know where that, they're talking of helium as a fuel, rare minerals that could be there that you could mine and do it. But beyond that, going to Mars, going and exploring other things, you need to get that kind of experience, and Moon is the ideal place to sit and do all the
When you mine, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, on the surface of the Moon, what do you get, which is of huge value back home?
Apart from the minerals, may I just take a step back?
Sure.
And I think this point, which I wanted to include in the discussion and has not been included by probably any of the news channels, is you kept mentioning, what is different between Chandrayaan 2 and Raj, of course, laid down what are the objectives of Chandrayaan 3. But one of the biggest differences that the Isro has undergone in 2 and 3 is the change of mindset. And I think that is neither being discussed, nor has it come up. In the 2, that is Chandrayaan 2, the idea was that they were going to be successful and they were going to come up with all these experiments, which was a foregone conclusion. So they had prepared themselves more for success. In this, that is Chandrayaan 3, they are more prepared to face the failures or the shortcomings, and that is why that there is plan A, there is plan B, and the redundancy factor is more. So one of the biggest things is that there is a change in mindset in the Isro, which unfortunately does not really, everybody says, okay, fine, if one of the equipment doesn't work, what happens? Well, we go on to plan B. In some cases, you can't go on to plan B. In most cases, you can. So this is something that has been worked on, and the scientific experiments and etc. are really coming on later. So I just thought this probably should be on the table.
No, it's very important. The more redundancy there is, the more backup plans you have, potentially the higher the chance of success. But as Rajingappa said, the unknown unknowns, you never really know. As Dr. Amitabh Ghosh found out, what you come up across, whether it's just a parachute or sand and the rover overturns, all kinds of stuff can happen. General Butt, before we conclude, your final words on what is it that you would be most anxious about when you look between now and landing around 6 p.m. the 23rd, what is the #1 worry and concern for you?
Oh, I'm an optimistic person, and I believe that this landing will take place successfully. You know, there are n number of challenges we can talk of, risks which are there. Many of them we have talked of, but I'm very positive with the way we have picked up the right lessons from Chandrayaan 2 and applied them in Chandrayaan 3, as has been mentioned by Raj and many other speakers. I am very confident and optimistic.
Okay, Amitabh Ghosh, what's your #1 concern? What would spook you the most between now and 6 p.m. tomorrow?
See, I think we will not have any access. I mean, it is an automated sequence. I mean, I don't think anyone can control that. 2 hours before, there will be a decision point where they will take whether ISRO will decide whether to go now or 27th August. But once they, I think, start the sequence, it's an automated sequence. I mean, they cannot stop it. So I don't think there are any concerns per se. I mean, I don't think we are in any control here. I mean, ISRO will have to decide, and then they choose a time, tomorrow or 27th.
You know, if they decide not to land tomorrow, what does the Chandrayaan do between tomorrow and the 27th? Like, because right now it's apparently just 25 kilometers from the surface of the moon. Does it stay in that same area?
Yeah, it has an elliptical orbit that it keeps going. So what it does is it'll keep moving, and then they'll find another, like they said, Sunday on 27 to come back and land. So it has to, everything has to be timed. So if there is a problem,
it pulls back.
Yeah, no, it actually continues with the orbit. What it does, it's moving at a 30 kilometer to 154 kilometer orbit like that, right? It's going around there. So when it has to land, which is what it does, it then, decelerates. There is what is called a kill phase, where they begin to lower the speed. It's traveling at 6,000 kilometers per hour. That's 5 times, max speed. So it has to bring it down slowly. So if it doesn't happen, it continues in that orbit. It doesn't escape the moon's gravity. It keeps with that pace. And then the next great window opens, which they believe is 27th. It will come down and land. But I'm pretty, I'm willing to bet, Rahul.
What are you betting?
Last time when we did the moon mission on the cover idea today, we had a bet, and I won the champagne. I won't say with whom. But I think this time I'm betting a champagne that they will do it, and they'll do it successfully.
But I'm not betting against you. So once you cock that champagne, I hope to be there to get my glass of bubbly as well. But let's just hope it goes well, and we can all pop some champagne. I'm not sure whether we're allowed to say this on TV, but what the hell, it's a good moment. So if it does land, we will open some champagne. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. And let's cheer for Chandrayaan, and let's all hope India's moonshot this time is successful. What fun. What excitement. I can only imagine the nervousness and the anxiety and the concern of our team at ISRO. We're all wishing them all the very best. From an imported rocket in 1963 to a made in India Chandrayaan 3 that cost less than the Hollywood film Interstellar, the Indian space mission has come a long way. As anticipation builds around Chandrayaan's moonshot, sky is the limit for India's space odyssey.
वास्तव में अंतरिक्ष में है तो क्या वैसी ही हालत है या कुछ अलग लग रहा है?
India's pride soars high.
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा.
Astronaut Rakesh Sharma becomes the first Indian to explore the celestial realm in a joint space mission with what was then Soviet Union. But the country achieved its first astronomical feat much before in 1963. Nike Apache, a 2-stage sounding rocket imported from the United States, blasted off from a fishing village near Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. Over the last 6 decades, India's space program has evolved enormously. From launch vehicles for satellites, INSATs for telecom, broadcasting, meteorology, remote sensing for satellite imagery, to research and development in space. From Aryabhat, a satellite designed and fabricated indigenously and launched from a Soviet rocket in 1975, to now on course to reach the moon and become the first country to explore its south pole.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LBM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
Because that is a place where we can get sufficiently enough solar heat, light for power generation. If you go further, there is a possibility that you will not get the full daytime utility.
15 years ago, India's first moon mission performed a detailed search of evidence of water and chemical composition of certain lunar rocks. The sky is the limit for the country's space ambitions. India's first space-based mission to study the sun. Aditya L1 nearing its launch date by the end of August or early September.
Currently, payloads are getting integrated with the satellite, and it will go through a series of testing, including thermovag, vibration, so many things. And after that, we will have the launch. It goes in a PSLV, so that will send a commercial launch. So after that, we are already starting another building a next PSLV, and we are targeting by August end that Aditya can go.
Isro working on the Gaganyaan mission, India's first manned space flight program. Blazing its way through the Earth's final frontier, India establishes itself as a space power and a master of space engineering. Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where we wrap up the Newstrack tonight. The India Today newsroom, as I'm sure all our viewers are cheering for the Chandrayaan. Do watch our live and continuing coverage all the way from now till the time Chandrayaan 3 lands and then even beyond. Goodbye, good night.